Alrighty, guys, welcome back to another episode of the League of Inches podcast. It's our season review specials once again. First up here, we're talking the Manly Sea Eagles, and to do that, I've got one of them, the Manly tragics in the content creation world, and that is Savs from the Supercoach Experience. And then I've also got Jake along as well, so that's not as exciting, I know, these days. But Jake, it's good to have you on board once again. But first of all, Savs, great to have you on, talk a bit of footy with you. First of all, guys, please watch this on the video because you can have a live comparison of how Movember's going for a few people. And Jake, you're getting put to shame right now because Savs has this caterpillar on his lip and you have a couple of specks. So I don't know.
Yeah, but the question is, did he shave it right at the start of November?
That's a very good question.
Have it going?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I kind of rock this 24/7, 12 months of the year. And, I shave it sometimes, and every time I shave it, I regret it. So I didn't want to start fresh in November. I was like, I'll get a head start on people. I know it's cheating, but pretty happy with it at the moment, to be honest.
Still, Jake, it's put you to shame. So don't try and just curl up. That's not a good effort. So it's what, the 12th, and I don't know what you're doing. But anyway, for a great cause, so well done. You're doing great things. All right, Manly, let's discuss them because it was a good season all up. So quickly, just their season stats. So finished 7th the regular season. They had 13 wins, 1 draw, 10 losses. Points differential of plus 113, which was nice and juicy. So that was good to see. Savs, I'll throw to you like I do all the time with the guests. Tell us your thoughts as a whole about their season this year.
I thought their season was pretty good. I think there was a lot of games that were left for begging. Towards late end in the season, we were a real shot of getting in the top 4, and I don't think that end of season loss against the Tigers really hit the nail in the coffin for us. I think there was a lot of losses early on that really didn't help us. We had some good wins as well, but there was a Parramatta loss in round 3. I actually went to that game, and that was that was a tough pill to swallow because I had Tom Trbojevic as my Supercoach captain, and that last play where Jake, was it Jake or was it Carl Lawton that was stuck in the line and then someone was going after him? I forget who it was. Sorry, it was such a long time ago, but that was a bit of a crap feeling. And then they lose to St. George the next week, who are up and down all year, and then like out of nowhere they beat Penrith the next week. So I think it was just a build-up of frustrating losses, which the season could have been a lot better and they could have really had a crack at it because we saw how Tommy was in the Pacific Championships. We saw how good he was. He just needed a couple of weeks to rest the body. And if he got to them preliminary finals, he could have just had that extra week just to fire. And who knows what they could have done. So overall, still pretty happy with the season. I just hope they build on this because I'm so used to them having seasons like this and then falling out of the 8 the following year.
Yeah, that round 25 loss to the Tigers really sticks out as well as one of those games that just, I don't know how you sort of lost it in a way. It was a very frustrating game to watch. Jakey boy, what are your thoughts as a whole before we get into some of the talking points for Manly's season?
Yeah, well, look, they're a team that could put on points with the best of the teams in the comp all season. I really do think that they had strike all over the park. You know, they're a back line that is, you know, they're fearsome. And they have, you know, your Olakawatus and your forward pack that's also just as strong. But at the same time, they were a team that had the games in it where they could just leak it too. Like they could just leak points out of nowhere for no reason. So until they kind of find that consistency, that's kind of what I feel like that would be what they need to aim for. Because, you know, they've got the strike around the park. They can put the points on, but they can also have those issues defensively kind of thing as well. But look, I think they did better than what I expected. Like, I'd say that they achieved more than what I expected. I'll still believe that if Tommy can just have 1 year injury-free, not that they'll win the comp, but, geez, they'd finish so much better than they do. Like, he just needs to not get injured for once. It's just such a shame.
It's a funny one because I looked at his stats before we came on air and to do this show, and I was sort of in the same sort of belief, like he just hardly played. He actually notched up 20 games this year, which I think when people say he had a pretty disappointing year in terms of it'd be great for him just to be on the field, it feels like he had one of those 10-game sort of seasons. He doubled that. He actually was on the field quite a lot this year, but I know what you're saying. Like it was that crucial time in the season where it split up his sort of season. So when he started to get to that Tommy that we know that he actually did start to get to, it was really getting scary as a opposition fan. Great for a Supercoach fan, but not great for an opposition fan. He got injured and then he had to start again. And then it was sort of like, oh, damn, like we missed out on again seeing that Tommy. But Sabs, as the fan, he's on here as one of the talking points, Tommy. But he, as I said, there was moments this year that I actually think he got back to that Tommy that we all know and love and say no one will ever get back to that sort of form. But I think there was patches where this year he did.
Yeah, I think he did as well. I think just back to your point on it felt like he played a lot less than he actually did with 20 games. He got injured in round 10 against the Dolphins with that hamstring injury. And that was already 10 games out of the way at the start of the season. And because he didn't absolutely explode in them first 10 weeks, he looked really good, mind you, but he didn't explode like we're used to. But there's no player in the competition that really explode in them first 10 rounds anyway, because defense is rock solid. It's later in the season when you see teams kind of fall off and they know where they are in the 8 where you see Tommy really do his best work. And he did do that late in the season. I thought he was a genuine chance of having a late run for that Dally M medal, especially if Jerome Hughes didn't, bank as many points as he did late. And I thought Tedesco was a really good shot as well. But too. Yeah, them first 10 rounds, they won a good amount of games. They beat Penrith, and then they had a draw with the Warriors. Then they beat the Gold Coast. They beat Parramatta, so they won pretty much 4 games in a row. But then they lost as soon as Tommy got injured. They lost against Canberra Raiders the week before in the wet. They were up 18-0 pretty early on, and then Canberra came back. So that was something that was an issue early in the season, just letting so many points in after getting strong leads. They lost to the Dolphins by 6 points where they really could have iced that, but that's when Tommy went down. So I think their confidence just really got shot. The next week in Magic Round, I didn't give him a chance, to be honest, but they lost 13-12 against Brisbane, and then they beat Melbourne Storm the next week. So I think they did well, especially without Tommy for that middle period. But I think next year, I don't know what they need to do next year to be better, because Tommy was on the field for so long. I just think they need to have him right for the right time of year. And I think they managed it pretty well this year, to be honest.
As an opposition fan, Jake, it is a scary proposition when we see Tommy Turbo play some of those starring games that he did end up playing this year.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, it's a bittersweet thing for me because I, obviously, as a Blues fan and a fan of, Australia, like, I want to see him fully fit and firing, and also a fan of good rugby league. Like, you want your best players playing in every team because it makes it the competition what it is. You don't ever want to see anyone injured. I mean, maybe unless you're going into a grand final and, your team hasn't won a comp in 60 years and you want to win one. But but look, he's always going to be terrifying. He could be limping onto that field and I'd still be worried because he'll just find a way to do something. He just is that player.
Yeah. I guess the good thing I felt like this year, we went into the season with a really key signing, I thought, to Manly, and that was Luke Brooks. And I was really, really excited to see DCE and Brooks work in together, as well as help Turbo and have a different aspect to their attack and take a bit of pressure off. It was always sort of DCE and Turbo, and that was the main sort of focal point of Manly's attack and has been for a couple of years now. I thought Brooks really worked well into that Manly, and we say people don't start on fire this year, and not many did, but Brooks did. Brooks had that first 2-3 games where everyone was thinking, what is going on here? Are we on for like a Luke Brooks Dally M sort of season? I remember that Vegas game, he was on fire. He just carried that sort of into the season as it went. And I thought he was consistent throughout the whole year in terms of he just seemed to play his role perfectly. And he picked when to play second fiddle and when to sort of be the sort of main guy as well. Because when you've got DCE and you've got Turbo in your team, you don't have to take over like he used to have to do with the Tigers. He could sit back, and he did that so well, I thought, this year, that I thought he was most games. He was a real good player. He wasn't necessarily the standout every week, but he was playing those sort of 6 or 7 out of 10 games, which is what you need when you've got those star players. Sabs, just your thoughts on that sort of halves pairing and as it went throughout the year?
Yeah, I thought at the start of the year, obviously he got the hype he deserved, but by the end of the year, it was pretty underrated considering how he played every game. He started the season strong, and I think he kind of needed to just to get the pressure off, just to get the monkey off the back. He finally played finals game at the end of the year, but one piece of criticism I do have for him, in round 16, they played South Sydney Rabbitohs in a bye round where Daly Cherry Evans didn't play. Yes, he was the 5'8", but I would have expected him to take a bit more control over the side. So I just wonder whether his plan is to move into that DCE role once DCE leaves the club, or whether he's happy staying at 5'8". If he's happy staying at 5'8" and he's happy to play that role, then perfect, because he's there every game, and it was such an underrated factor for the team that just having him there all year. Because in the past we've flipped around between Josh Schuster, we've had Lachlan Croker, Cade Cust. We haven't been able to settle on a 5'8" since Kieran Foran. So I think the fact that we don't have to worry about the spine is so perfect, because it just showed with everyone else. Everyone else knew their role, and everybody else had career years as well.
I know Jake as Paraffin.
I was going to say, you don't have to worry about the spine for one more year until DCE retires or dies.
Oh, yeah. Hang on.
Oh, sorry, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I'm sorry, that was a bit much. I'm sorry. Until he retires.
Just to retire. So the way the market's going, he'll probably go one more year, to be honest with you. So, and if this year's to go by, he'll fit in, because I actually thought DC was one of Manly's best this year, and he's just like a fine wine for mine. He's getting better. It's just that consistency again, and it's funny we talk about it with the halves, but both of them I thought this year played with tremendous sort of consistency. And was it there? Like we can argue that last game against the Roosters, obviously something was clearly missing, whether it was they had their sort of final against the Dogs, and that was such a big atmosphere. And we've seen in the past, those sorts of finals can weigh a lot on the team that wins. It can be a real big come down to then go and play a Roosters team that was sort of up emotional wise to get through that next stage for a lot of their departing players. And it just sort of looked like they were not there out of the gates. And that's probably the only game I can be critical of both of those sorts of players in the seasons they had. And that's not a bad thing. That sort of grow from that. And as we've said, like, I feel like, especially when we talk about next year, there's a lot to look forward to for a Manly supporter's point of view. And as a Para fan, I hate that, because I can actually see it on the writing on the wall that, hey, if these guys can stay fit, and you mentioned a bit earlier, Jake, and it's a good sort of talking point, that back line is scary good. Like, there is so much talent and there's so much speed, which is a huge key element in the game these days of how fast it is. If you can have some quick men on the outside who can get on the outside of players and off they go, mate, you're winning more games than you're losing each year. And Jake, what else were you thinking about when it comes to the back line?
Oh, look, this kind of ties in with what you were talking about, Brooksy. So I'll just quickly jump into that for just 2 seconds. Is that one thing that he does bring that your 5'8s have lacked in the past is just speed. So he does have pace about him, and he actually adds a level of threat with the ball, because he has that dummy and run kind of thing that he has in him. And so when you have such strike on the edges that you kind of have to man mark, and then you have your Olakau'atu on the side, or who's his second rower?
It was Carl Lawton at the end of the year, but Ben Trebojevic started the year on his side.
Yeah, well, either way, look, they have some threat next to him kind of thing. So, like, that whole edge is just a whole level of threat. But if you're talking about Saab, probably the fastest over 100 in the game. You've got Tolatau Kula. He's probably one of the most agile players in the game, if not the fastest over, maybe 40, 50. Like, it's just speed. Like, if they make a break, they are scoring a try. It's not like no ifs, ands, or buts. They're going to score. So it's you actually have to. It's a extra level for defenses to kind of go. We cannot even let a break happen, because if a break happens, we lose. Like we concede a try. So that extra level can sort of force them to make mistakes and have to be a bit more pressure on them. So it's honestly just a big level of threat to every player, to every team. There's no team that matches them for speed, I'd say, on the edges.
Yeah, and Sabs, it's sort of like that sort of comes with its own dangers, because then you can come into games with this arrogance about you going, all right, we can score 40, 50 points pretty much with ease if we want to. Sometimes, and as you sort of said, there was a few games this year where I felt like Manly just lost it. Like that just, who knows why, they just lost it. And it's sort of, is it that attitude where they go into games going, oh, we've got this attacking prowess at our disposal, it's just going to come to us. And there was a few games this year where the sleeves weren't rolled up perhaps, and it didn't come to them. And all of a sudden you're behind and you're losing games that you should be winning, which can cost you a top 4 spot.
Yeah, but I actually like the way they approach it because they have speed. Why not use it? I think they played to their strengths early on in the season, and they beat teams like Penrith, Melbourne, and Roosters. The Roosters is a win that stands out to me because for Melbourne and Penrith, they versed them at Brookvale. They did the Roosters as well, but I feel like the other teams didn't perform as well, whereas the Roosters were at their best. The Roosters started really hot, and in round 2, it was their best form versus the Roosters' best form. And Manly came out on top because they threw the ball around and Roosters just couldn't react to it, and they were too fast for them. So I think playing to their strengths is something they've got to lean into going forward. But I agree sometimes maybe they don't want to roll the sleeves up when it's not going their way. But like at the end of the day, they didn't really lose that many games 13 plus. So I think they've kind of found a good balance and how to lean into it a lot more this year. And I really hope they do hone in on that next year.
Yeah, it's dangerous times. And one player I feel like I've had massive raps on his season this year. I know he's gone into a different position, and I'm keen to know your thoughts, Sabs, on this one. But Ruben Garrick, I feel like he had quite a decent year, to be honest with you. I know he's gone from the wing to center, and there's a lot of Manly fans out there. And every time I sort of talk about it, and I'll talk to Manly fans, it's real 50-50 vibes with whether they're happy with his year or not. What were your thoughts around him? And can you let us in why some people out there, and there'll be people listening who have those thoughts, why they're not that happy with him? Because for me, as a non-a fan who maybe I'm not watching every single play or something that he does, but it just seems like he had a good year.
Yeah, I think he had a good year as well. And I think it just is he's had better years where everyone around him is having their best year that they've had. Like obviously Tommy had 2021. You can't really replicate that. So when Tommy's on the field, you're just happy. But everyone else, Luke Brooks, Lehigh, Tommy Talau, Olakawatu, their whole side was outperforming one another. Whereas Garrick really wasn't standing out. But he still had a good amount of stats. He had 202 points. He scored 10 tries, 81 goals. I know goal kicking is nothing, but he's pretty much up there for all the stats in the Manly side. And, I've heard a lot of chat about him going back to wing. I think he's going to be a center going forward still.
Me too.
Because you're not moving and you're not moving Hopewade off the wing. I don't think you can play Hopewade in the center. But I guess that begs the question, if you do want Garrick back on the wing, then that means Tommy probably has to play center, which I don't like that chat at all. I'm not very keen on that chat. Tommy's a superstar, and you got to play superstar in the key positions. But overall, I thought Garrick had a good season. Obviously, some defensive mishaps, but that's going to happen. Learning a new position in an elite sport, I think you'll just get better for it, and there's no point of going back on that anytime soon.
I think Tommy put a huge, big red X on the center sort of experiment moving forward, because again, as I said, like he had some massive glimpses this year where he was just back to the vintage best, and he won't be able to do that sort of thing playing center and being stuck on an edge. So let him just continue to play at the moment while he can at fullback. Jake, I want to ask you about Lehigh Hopewade, because I look at this kid and I honestly think he can be the next fullback for Manly whenever Tommy, like we're saying that don't do it anytime soon, but whenever it does happen, this guy excites me so much. And even if it's just for the next couple of years when he's sitting there on the wing and doing his thing, I still think he can win games on the wing. I think this guy is that good, and it's a big prediction, but I think he's probably the best Hopewade that's come out so far. Like he's just got some serious skill about him. That's including his dad. Sorry to say, but I think this kid has a lot going for him. And all reports I've heard from his junior days and that as well, and how he carries himself. He's just a real good young bloke, and he's just a real credit to, I guess, his family. What are your thoughts around his year and sort of, I guess, his trajectory is it's huge.
I think, contrary to popular belief, the thing that impressed me the most about him, obviously he's not very big in stature, like he's not a massively framed dude, but defensively is actually where he shines. And don't get me wrong, he shines in attack, but defensively is where I'd say he shines the most. Like, I don't know, for anyone who watched the Tonga versus Australia final in the Pacific games, he saved, I think, 4 tries, four or 5 tries. It would have been a blowout if he wasn't at the back, to be honest with you, because he was just a try stopper. And I know he was playing fullback, but there's no reason why you can't do that on the wing. I didn't focus heaps on him while sort of the season was on as much per se. But I mean, most fullbacks can play on the wing, I'd argue. And I have watched a few games where, in terms of try scoring ability, he's got that. He can bust a tackle. He's got that agility. He's got that step. So he kind of already has a bit of everything. The other real thing I've said I haven't seen too much from him in the fullback role would be more so like that ball playing side of things as much. I haven't seen that much from him there yet, but that's something that you can develop that's something that can definitely be developed. And if you've got that basic defensive side of things down covered, that's huge. That's like the hardest part. The attacking side can come secondary to that if you've got somebody with those skills. And so he has that. So yeah, I think he's going to develop into a world-class player. I really do.
And Sabs, he's super tough as well. I remember towards the end of the year, he had that, I think it was that cheekbone injury, and he was only out for what felt like 2, maybe 3 weeks. And all of a sudden he's back doing all the hit ups against the big boys. Like I feel like he's an incredible player, that huge future.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think Jake spoke about like the ball playing and all that sort of stuff. I think half of ball playing is getting your timing right, and his timing is perfect. I find, I know this is a bit off topic, but Fa'alogo for Melbourne Storm, his timing is terrible, and I feel like that, especially if Pappy goes, they're going to struggle because he is so used to the team just giving him the ball and him running. He's got to work on his timing, whereas Lehigh only needs to work on like the last pass. So he's got everything else rounded out in his game. I thought he had an average semi-final against the Bulldogs, but I think he was better for it because obviously he's really stood out in the Pacific Championships, and he played very well the next week as well. He is young, and it's funny, we've heard about all these Hopewades coming through. Like Albert Hopewade was supposed to be the next big thing. We heard nothing about Lehigh. He comes in this year, and he's pretty much exactly what all these other Hopewades were touted to be. So I'm glad that one of them paid off because we've been hearing about it for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah, you've had a couple coming through your grades it feels like about 10 years now. So they just keep coming. They just keep coming. So shout out to you, John. You've done some good things there. The last one I want to quickly touch on before we just do a bit of a quick rapid fire questions. Ola Kawadu. And it's more so, Sabs, I want to know your thoughts around. I think he's right on the edge at the moment of becoming an elite edge back rower in this competition. He's right on the edge. For some reason, I can't quite put him into that elite category just because I feel like there's been a couple of games this year where he just was not really in it. He was just sort of waiting for the game to get to him, where we've seen Crichton say for this year, he was just chasing every game. Like he was like, give me the ball, I'll break this game open. There was moments where I felt like Hamole had that mindset and he goes, I can do this. And I think he's done that on the weekend when we watched him against the Aussies. Like he's learning this as he goes, and he's still quite young in his career. He is, I feel like he had a really, really good year. I just can't put him quite on that elite status, but maybe I'm being too harsh. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this comes down to the Origin thing. He didn't really perform that well in Origin. Mind you, he didn't get really given a crack, but you've got Crichton and Liam Martin there who are not going anywhere. They're a different style of player. Crichton looks for work. Liam Martin looks for big hits and making an impact. Whereas Ola Kawatu, his style of play is when he gets the ball, he will make damage, and they kind of need to build plays around him. And Manly do that. They do that very well, Manly. And he plays his role perfectly. I think for for a side like the New South Wales Blues, it doesn't really work as well. I think he can go into that elite category, but it's a different style, I guess, because like an Angus Crichton and Liam Martin, they've got the dog, and Olukwatu has the superstar factor. You don't really need another superstar in the Origin Blues side when you've got all these outside backs. You don't need an attacking second row. If your halves were lacking or something like that, then Olukwatu would be perfect for the Origin arena. But I think just Origin made everyone step back a little bit and kind of look at him in a different light. But I think him and Eli Katoa in the Pacific Championships were just phenomenal. I think they're great second rowers, and you've got to have a team that's willing to play and build their game around you.
Jakey boy, your thoughts on Hamole's year?
Yeah.
I was just going to see if I could add something to that, but so it's basically the same thing anyway. I think first of all, he had a huge year. I think he has insane talent and just tackle busting ability and try scoring and tackling. He's got a bit of everything as well. I haven't seen him ball play much in terms of like a ball playing second row, but you don't need him to. The guy's a wrecking ball. He's not really his job. Although, I sort of see him pop those offloads and things like that, but he didn't get played out of position for the Blues. They didn't play him in prop. It's not really fair. It's not really fair to sort of say, not to you, not anything against you there, Saz, but it's not really fair to go, he can't make it in the Origin arena when he didn't get played in his position. He didn't get played in that spot where he gets played to try and, usually dominate. And I get what you're saying with the whole, your second rows that they had there, Liam Martin and Angus Crichton weren't going to get pushed out of their spots. But in that case, why did they bring him in the first place? Just because he's got that ball, tackle busting ability, or I don't know. But I actually thought he played all right, considering he was playing in a position that he wasn't used to. He did a pretty decent job. But in terms of I think he's only going to keep getting better as long as that drive stays there. You know what I mean? He's just going to keep being that meter eater who just scores tries for fun. That second row that you can always put into your Supercoach team. He was the first one in my Supercoach team this year, actually. Funny story. And I just think that he, in terms of his actual season, he's a gun. He just has to want to be there and want it, and I think he does. I think he just wants to succeed.
I think DCE is working really, really well with him, and he's started to work out how to use him and the best ways to get the best out of him on a more consistent basis. Because as I said, he's only human. There wasn't, and comparing him to Crichton or Martin is, as you said, sort of subs. It's not quite right, because we say the same thing about David Fafita. He's not that type of player. He's more of that. He's gonna bowl over 3 or 4 players and get that try that you need. And Hamole's on that sort of verge now. And if anything, he had a better year than David Fafita, in my opinion. And if we're talking about destructive back rowers, Hamole probably was the best one this year. So it's funny how when you do peel it back a little bit and listen to other people's thoughts, how it can come differently. And the way he's playing and the way he sort of works, it works perfectly for Manly. So that works into just a couple of rapid fire questions that I wanted to get some answers for. So the first one is our key moment of the year. Savs, the Manly fan, what was your key moment for this year?
Oh, I didn't think of this beforehand. I thought it'd just come to me straight away. It's got to be Tommy's injury in round 25, or round 26, was it, against the Bulldogs. I think they're in a good position to just strike there, and I think that really derailed their finals campaign, because they did enough work through the season to be happy with their year, but I think they would have liked to at least get to a prelim this year, just based on their side and having everyone fit. So I think the Tommy injuries, but I guess for me, pretty happy with the season. So it's not there's not a complete defining moment that really changes everything too far one way or the other. Yeah.
Jay, your thoughts?
Was it defining moment or just a key moment?
Key moment of the year.
Lehigh Hopewate debut, and it's not necessarily going to be the key moment this year. It's going to be the key moment that started this year for the rest of for a long time in their books. I think.
For mine, I'll put down the Luke Brooks try at Vegas. Sort of a bit of pressure on him being the new signing and getting away finally from the West Tigers was such a nice breath of fresh air to see him cross over that line and be an instrumental piece in that win over there in Vegas. Surprise packet of the year. Jake, go to you first.
As in like a player?
Mate, you can take it wherever you want. You know how this works by now.
I'd never heard you phrase it that way. That just
It's a copy and paste, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking it is. I was about to say Lehigh Hopper-White, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, like no one expected anything from him, and he's just come out and shown, hey, I want to be here, and I can make this side against any of the people that you've got here. To be honest with you.
Yep. No, I got the same. Lehigh Hopper-White. He came from absolutely nowhere and has basically penned himself in my opinion, to be in this lineup anytime he's fit. Granted, obviously he doesn't go off the rails or something or injury and that sort of thing. Sabs?
Yeah, obviously Lehigh is a standout, but I'm going to say Nathan Brown getting bang for buck for his signing. I think he was really important for us. Closely followed by Carl Lawton. I think he did a really good fielded him really good whenever he was called upon. I think he's going to be a good signing for the Cowboys, and I think we're going to miss him.
I'm going to actually, you know what, take back what I said because someone popped up in my mind that I completely forgot about. Tommy Talau. He was honestly like, that was a season and a half. And I know for mine, like Lehigh's a bit different because he's a junior and we didn't really see him before. But Tommy, I felt like got written off by almost everyone in the rugby league world by the time that Manly signed him this year. And there was a lot of, what have they done this for, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, he's become a very, very good, consistent winger. And he's in that battle at the moment. He's almost in a way like Saab, and it's so hard to get rid of him. And now Lehigh's got the position as well. But you almost need to find a way to get Tommy in this team on a week-to-week basis. His form this year was that good, and that's a huge credit to him. So credit to Tommy there. He's a great year. Next one up, second last one who needs a big 2025? I'll take this one first. I've put down in a weird one because I thought he ended the year so well in 2023. I'm going to have Cooler needs a big 2025 just in terms of a bit of a bounce back. I've just mentioned a couple of those players who almost need to be in the back line. So there's definitely room to someone needs to make way on a week-to-week basis. And Cooler, I know I rate him so highly, and I loved that he's got he had that fullback form, he was a beast. We obviously know with Turbo he can't move into that position, but I don't know. There's something in there that I just feel like even Lehigh, maybe when Lehigh gets a bit more beef about him, he might become a center to make way for Tommy to stay there on the wing. We're not too sure, but yeah, there's something there. I know Cooler was really good. He obviously put his body on the line and got obviously that unfortunate knockout against the Roosters, which hurt the Manly Sea Eagles a lot in that game. Just, yeah, I feel like with the positions and where we're sort of sitting with things, he might need to have a big 2025. Savs?
Yeah, I think Cooler is probably locked into a position. I think Tommy Talau did amazing, but Tommy Talau is a perfect person to fill in whenever there's an injury. But I dare say one of them is going to be unhappy. It's going to
be the year request, please.
Yeah, I'm worried about that because they're all playing so well. But I think a big year for 2025 has to be Jake Trbojevic, captain of New South Wales. He hasn't been himself for the last 2 years, in my opinion. He's been slower. He's not really playing that 13 role that every other club is nailing. He needs a big year because he's on a big contract, and it hurts Manly when their players on big contracts aren't performing. We know Tom's out enough of the time with injury, but when he's on the field, at least he's their best player. I think they need more from Jake if they want to do better in 2025.
That is huge with one of Manly's favourite sons, but it makes complete sense. Jake, your thoughts?
Before I answer, just to clarify, Lachlan Croker is still your hooker, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I felt about him when I watch Manly games. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, but I don't notice him ever when I watch a Manly game. Like, you know, you've mentioned everyone in this team, and I get that. To be honest with you, I believe that Hooker's role almost is sometimes to be that invisible kind of extra man, but he doesn't feel like that. He just feels like all he is doing is getting the ball to the halves, and that is it. Like no creativity from him at all. And I think that if he doesn't do something, because you've lost Carl Lawton, so obviously right now he's a very important player, but I think if he doesn't do something to kind of want Manly to go like, I want to renew your contract, he'll get the boot, and they'll try and find a hooker that can kind of do a bit of a better job attacking wise. You know what I mean? That's my call for it.
They've got two in the works. They've got Gordon Chan Kum Tong, and they've got Jake Simpkin as well. And I was sort of, I don't know, in a way that Gordon had a lot of raps on him about 2 years ago. He hasn't really, for mine, lived up to it yet, but has he also had the opportunities and the chances yet to display any of that and live up to that hype? I'm not too sure. Sabs, you're the fan. You're looking maybe a bit more deeper into this than we are. What are your thoughts around that position?
I had high hopes for Gordy, and I haven't. I watch him. He comes on. He plays 20 minutes. He's meant to be energy, impact, but his service from dummy half. I've never seen anyone pass the ball out of dummy half slower. You need to be much quicker out of dummy half. I'm happy with Lockie Croker. I think he defends well. He puts his body on the line. That he does his job, and yeah, he's probably like a Mitch Kenny from Timu type player. But you know, some Timu objects are useful sometimes. So you know, we'll get a life out of him. Whether he just completely breaks on us next year, I think that's yet to be determined. But I'm happy with him for now. I'd love for us to chase someone like Brandon Smith and, you know, start with Lockie Croker. Lockie Croker only needs 20 minutes or something like that. Get Cheese on. He can be that 13 that takes the pressure off Jake. He can be that guy at number 9. I think he'll be perfect for Manly.
No, there you go.
That's a good call.
That makes sense. I like that. Who's your player of the year for Manly, Sabs?
It's Tommy. 20 games, nearly won a Dally M medal. When he was on the field, he was just that influence. I can't go against Tommy. I think you. I'm trying to be cute if I'm not.
Yeah, Jake, your player of the year.
I think I've got to agree with him. To be honest, I just think Tommy, I think everyone thought maybe Brooksy on for the Dally M at the start of the season, but he didn't finish off the season as strongly. But Tommy for sure.
I've got Tommy as well. I think they would have lost a lot more games than they did if it wasn't for Tommy being on the field when he did, and probably helped win them a lot of those games that they did win. He was sensational, I thought, for a lot of this year, and hopefully, and fingers crossed, we get to see him again just fire up and be that sort of player again next year and get to play the whole season. It'd be so good for Manly, for the Blues, then for the Kangaroos at the end of the year in that Great Britain sort of tour that they've got going. But yeah, really keen. But that's it. That's it for the Manly Seagulls preview. Thanks to Sabs from Supercoach Experience for jumping on for that one. If you haven't already, make sure you give him some love on his account. Supercoach Experience on all the sort of the socials, YouTube and podcasts, everything Supercoach related. He is your go-to man, and bit of a plug. He did pretty well this year as well. So what'd you finish again, Sabs?
Oh, I don't remember.
He was in the top 20 to 15 for most of the year, made the last little bump in the road, but top 100 still. So go to him and get all your sort of Supercoach takes. He's one of the best in the business, apart from probably us. But
it makes me cringe. Don't rap me like that.
All good.